drawing 6. So let's start with test review and put that behind us.
Alrighty.
Test will start 8:30. I'll allow an hour and a half for it. I think if you're totally prepared for this one, you'll be about 20 minutes. I've had students finish this in like 12 minutes, but keep in mind, the test is not a race. And usually in the testing arena, the first one done is not the winner. So take your time with it, read things through, understand what you're doing. The test will really be composed of 2 components. Okay, so you're going to get the first test separate than the second test. Okay, the first test is in essence definitions and access of commands and variables. Okay. So we have a substantial amount of these. I've given you 2 resources. I would highly recommend you study for this. We had our variables worksheet, right, where you went through and you listed all the variables to put everything in a nice location for you. And we also took a pop quiz. We took that pop quiz specifically to get you kind of prepped for what you're going to see here. Okay, so it's going to be very similar. You are going to get a list of commands and variables. You will have some statements up to 10 that you match with that list, and you will have some screen dumps of items, and you will then locate where these variables are. In essence, if we're going to edit them or set them up, that really kind of controls how the drawing's going to look with it. Now, there will be one caveat that you haven't seen. And that is chapter 20 was editing dimensions. Primarily, how do we edit dimensions? Through the properties dialog box. You have access to all your variables in there. And so you will see, this will look a little bit different. And again, I'm not here to fool you. I'm here to tell you what I consider important, test you on it, and then whether you know that or not is really up to you. By that, let me just kind of give you an example of what the other portion of it is going to look like. While we're waiting for that thing to pop up. So again, you're gonna see these sheets again. So you will have to go through and identify where everything's at. Now, the other portion of it that I'm going to interject that you haven't seen before is the editing portion, or in essence, this guy right here. So where, if you came in here, know your different tabs, okay, such as lines and arrows, text, fit, primary units. There's all your tabs from the dim style command. We have access to every single variable through here that applies to one dimension only versus a dim style where you go through that and change it. You're applying it globally to everything you place. So you're going to see some screen dumps of this with things pointed out on it. Again, I'm going to try and focus on this to the ones that you're going to use. By that, I don't think I'm going to ask you about dim TIH and TOH, or dim FXL, because that's really a command. FLXL on is a variable. You have to say that 3 times fast. I'm going to stick with the ones that are important to us, and the ones we use time and again and again. Once you're done with this portion of the test, you hand it to me, you get your second portion, which is performance-based. Now, before I leave this, are there any questions on this?
Is it going to be like that matching, like what you
It'll
have?
be a matching, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And you will match either to figures or statements.
And how many questions?
Right now it's at 25, but that can change. In essence, I think you probably want me to make it more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because 25 means everyone's worth 4 points. If I make it more,
So are they two separate exams or they're one?
They'll all be graded on both of them will be graded on a 100-point scale.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Gotcha. Good.
To finish your question, I think the first part's 50%, the second part's 50%.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions? All right, the second part, in essence, what you're going to be given is a drawing. It will be a completed 3-view drawing or 2-view drawing, whatever the case. This one actually is a 2-view drawing. It'll have a title block for you. It'll have textile setup, layer setup. But again, you're using somebody else's drawing, namely mine. It would behoove you to spend a few minutes looking through the drawing so you are comfortable that the layers are set up and the right properties are set up that you are used to. If they aren't, you are more than welcome to add or subtract from that. So be checking title blocks, be checking textiles, be checking layers, these types of items, right? The drawing will be completed. If you wish to add center lines to it, you may. This is a dimensioning test. There was one thing that will not be set up in it, and that is any dimensioning items. So in essence here is really the focus of how can you jump into a drawing, set it up so that the dimensions are to ANSI and CSI standards, both dimensions and multiliters, and then apply them. This is not a real tough figure. I think, in fact, last memory serves me right, there's like seven dimensions on the whole thing. I'm looking at, can you get those 1/8 inch? Can you get it a 1/2 inch off? Can you get all those variables set up so that it is to standards? There will be multiliters on it. They're negative cylinder. It will be a 2-scale drawing. So in essence, you'll pop the drawing open. You'll have to create a dim style, multiliter style to our standards, and then apply those dimensions. One last component of it, you will print it.
Do we get one print?
You get one print.
Do we get to use our custom arrowhead or do we use?
You use the ANSI standard arrowhead.
Gotcha.
It will be to CSI standards, which in essence is ANSI. I'll give you a quick thing. I want it fully dimensioned. What that means is it should be tolerance also.
You give us the tolerance and notes, or we're making notes?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not,
Oh.
something we're gonna go get that and look and figure it out?
No, you will not be doing direct tolerance. At least I hope you don't.
Okay.
We
You
remember
want
we
to
did.
get our
Remember we
CSI
did.
standards, yeah, okay.
Remember, we did not go over the alternates unit tab or the tolerancing tab. That is going to be gone over in drafting 150, because that's really the discipline that uses those during the summer. So don't apply direct tolerances. What else to say about that? I'll give you the file through Google Classroom. I will want a copy of it so that I can check the behind-the-scenes stuff also. Okay, so if you would, when you finish the drawing, I will ask you to email it back to me. If you struggle getting something downloaded off of Google Classroom, that's not really going to be graded. But don't ask your neighbor, ask me. And I don't know how to do it either, so.
I have another question. I mean, I'm used to printing off my, previous and I already saved.
so if we're gonna print off something, we're gonna have to set up a print.
Yeah. Mhm. Yes, you will.
I don't do that. Can you tell us what size paper?
Sure, it's on B sheet.
What about the scale?
It's gonna be the scale. Or
They have
to
two
some scale,
scales.
it will not be 1-to-1. The drawing's gonna be done for you.
It's just a mention.
Just for information now. Do all the,
Yes.
then we set.
All you should have to do is dimension it, jump to paper space, make sure everything's set up, your title block reads right, everything's good, send it off. I don't know of anything else I really want to say on that. Are there any questions for me?
So you said it should, fastest somebody's taken it is 12 minutes. Is that both parts or just one part?
It's probably both parts.
Oh, really? Wow.
But again, this isn't a race. I'm just saying, I'll give you an hour and a half. All tests are easy if you're prepared for them. All tests are hard if you are not prepared for them. Don't think this is an easy test. It might be very hard for some of you. Maybe you go to the planetarium show tonight instead of studying. I don't know.
What?
Go hit the disco.
There's this one today?
I hate myself.
No, Amy, there's not.
I will go.
Whatever. I'm not trying to give the impression this is easy. I'm just saying that if you are prepared, that this is not going to be a real lengthy one.
I got one more question.
Yes.
Are we gonna have architectural dimensioning?
No, it will all focus in the mechanical arena to ANSI standards.
Okay, thank you. Good answer.
ANSI standard decimal places are to 2.
Two.
No, that's really a CSI standard.
Okay.
ANSI standard is on English units. You do not have leading zeros, kind of like that. But the decimal places are left up to the workplace and what the workplace is capable of building to. For CSI, that's 2.
2.
Okay. So when I say CSI and ANSI standards,
2.
we're really using ANSI plus a workforce requirement. Is that clear?
Yes.
Got it.
Two scales means probably
Would anybody like me to go through how to set up a dim style? Or we've gone through it a couple times, but
How about the printing? Well, seriously, since I use the Davenport drop down, I haven't done that for a long time.
okay, we can review printing if you wish. Before we review that, anything else you have a question on?
Are we still going over test? Or?
Oh, I have a question. So the 20, because you said it was going to be definitions and command variables. Is that throughout all of what we learned, or certain chapters that we?
Specifically, really, we're talking about 16, 17, and 18.
Okay.
Now, I am interjecting 20 in it too, because 20 is this guy,
Yeah.
right? 16 was dim styles and the individual tabs that went with dim styles, parent, children. And we kind of took a couple days to do that. We did the parent right off the bat, and then we interjected children at a later date once we started looking at variables. They went through each tab in 16, what they did, where the variables were. And then 17 and 18 were very few variables, but most of the commands. And by commands, think of dim baseline, dim continue, dim linear, dim align, dim angular, dim radius, dim diameter. By the way, when you're setting up dim styles for that second part of the drawing, or even the first part, there is a negative cylinder on there. And so you might want to know how to set up your children, dim radius and dim diameter.
Can you go over?
By the way, you will have access, you're going to do this on your own computer.
Go back to your thing and try to remote.
It's about kind of a real world setting.
Judy, how are you gonna keep us?
Did that answer your question?
Yeah. I was mainly wondering like what chapters and stuff, because I was gonna I would have sucked if I had to look through all the chapters.
Really, the only thing that probably won't be on there is 19. We only had the primary units tab, although there will be some variables I'm going to cover off of that tab,
Okay.
right? Because there's DIM-L unit, DIM-DEC, DIM-ZIN, DIM-ZIN, DIM-A-DEC
Yeah.
that we use quite frequently on there. Thank goodness we don't have to teach DIM-L FAC anymore. That would be a 2-day deal all by itself. But thanks to viewports, we don't use that anymore. And drawing 1-to-1. Okay, so you will have that at a 19. There will be nothing on XREFs. Yes.
Can you go over the child again
Okay.
on the radial and the diameter?
Yeah,
There's
in
a,
essence, when we looked at our children, because we set up the MEC 1 dimension style that works great for all linear dimensions in an engineering sense, and in fact, that MEC 1 dimension style is going to work for every class we do except for one, the architectural class, because all engineering disciplines kind of do it the same. They're based all in ANSI. You know where ANSI gets all their standards from?
Yeah.
ASME, American Society of Mechanical Engineers. They interject something, and then 2 years later, you see ANSI adopted. Okay, so, and civil, structural, well, structural is kind of a combo, but civil, electrical, all these others, they just follow along, okay, and use those. That's why I teach it in mechanical. If you can dimension mechanical, you can dimension anything. Lost my train of thought until I never got a lot of sleep last night. Let's see, where was I at?
Rating.
What's that?
The children.
Oh, the children. Yeah, okay, so when you're doing the children, you have 3 variables, I believe, that we dealt with. We have dim-sen, and when we went over it in class, I said, you may use this or you may not, because dim radius, dim diameter access the dim-sen command. I recommended you set dim-sen to 0 for both of them and use the center mark option, which is a new thing in AutoCAD. But that is up to you. You can certainly use dim-sen. Remember dim-sen with the none value, and it has a mark, which is used with radiuses, and it has a lines, which is used with full circles. Now, however you set that, that's really up to you. Bottom line is you need the appropriate tick marks and lines when you do a full circle or an arc. The other things we did is in the linear dimensions, we use dim ticks. Okay, and let me just pop this open so you can see it. Dave, would you mind hitting the lights real quick? Thank you. And let me just point out where these are at. Let me open a drawing. It's mechanical to start with. Okay, so I'll just show you where these are at. First off, under symbols and arrows, when you're creating these children. Well, let me start over. First off, how do we create a child dimension style?
The first one down there.
Okay, so you start right here. You've created the MEC 1 dimension style that works great for all linear dimensions. Okay, the only place it really falls down is these circular items. How do I create these two, diameter and radius?
They fall underneath that one.
you go in MEC, new.
Okay, so I make sure the MEC 1 is blue,
Yep.
not the standard or annotated, because those are defaults from AutoCAD. So I go to MEC 1, I say new,
And then you go start with,
Yeah, down there. You're
Oh, all
supposed to click
dimension.
decimal or radius.
yep, I come down here. They don't give it a name, because it's going to be associated with the MEC 1. You just come down here and choose what you want it for, whether it's dim radius, dim diameter. You will not be ordinate dimensioning on this, so you don't need that one. And we no longer use Q-liter, we use multi-liter instead. Okay, so you don't really need to deal with liters and tolerances. So really, the radius and diameter are the two you're dealing with. So once you choose that, then it just basically says, okay, go ahead and run with it. The places you want to deal with is symbols and arrows tab. That's where the dim_sen variable is located, right here.
Why don't you click none?
Yeah, I run it on none now, and that's the way we kind of went over. I just left it on mark because I'm not going to use it anyway, and then we just went and switched it. But if you just set your Mech 1 to none, that's fine. Now, keep in mind, this is the one I just talked about. You can use this instead of this guy. It works just fine, as long as you know which one it got. If you're doing radiuses, you want mark. If you're doing full circles, you want line. The value is always a 16, if you wish to use this. Okay, the next thing you want to do is go to the Fit tab. Everything else is there. When we did our linear dimensions, we left it on dim text, which stands for text inside extension lines. So no matter how small that dimension gets, the text will always be placed in there. As remember, as dimensions get smaller, the first thing we pull out is arrowheads. If it gets smaller, and we leave text inside the extension lines. If it gets smaller yet, we don't have room for our text, then we have our arrows and extension lines out. Now, with dim text, when you get these small dimensions, we just know, hey, it's going to be placed in there. It might not be readable. I'm going to have to go move it with grips, right? We talked about that. You don't want dim text for dim radius and dim diameter. You're going to use dim AT_fit with different values. If memory serves me correctly, with dim diameter, we used an AT_fit value of 1. So we clicked on the arrows. With dim radius, we used an AT_fit value of 2, which is the text buttons. So you're going to want to check those. The only other thing we did is we came down to dim UPT and we turned it on for both of them. And this allowed us to place the dimension line at the correct distance where it went. Is that good enough? Dim_sen, dim AT_fit with the correct value, dim UPT, on for both of them.
What about the units?
We didn't change units. Now, I am seeing this. Now, folks, I want to make this clear. Maybe I didn't give it in lecture. There's two things I keep seeing kind of continuously, and this is not part of it. Well, yeah, it might be part of the test. When you're doing English units, suppress the leading 0. If you're doing a metric unit, you've got to change your Mech 1 and you suppress trailing. Right? So you're changing the dim_sen variable. Because I keep seeing this pop up on some drawings where I'll see dimensions and I see 0.50 or something for an English measurement. No, this should not be here. If I see metrics, and I'm seeing some metrics out there like 1.25, no, we don't have trailing. Your tolerance is plus or minus 1 millimeter. There are no decimal places. That's the base unit for metric. Metric is the millimeter.
Why do you choose trailing for metric?
What's that?
Why
Because it's an
activate?
ISO standard.
There's no
Well,
decimal
what
point.
is the effect that it'll have?
If for some reason you've got something drawn out there at 1.5 millimeters, you want it to read 2 millimeters. You don't want it to read 1.50. There are no decimal places in metric. Now again, that's the ISO standard, International Standards Organization. They control the metric system. If you work at a place that is capable of going to 2 decimal places in the metric system, that will be their tolerancing. And then you would have it, but you still don't have trailing zeros. If I had 1.25, my dimension would read 1.25. If I had 1.20, it would read 1.2. There would not be a 0. Okay? And we've talked a lot about these significant figures. Your drawing's gonna be in English units, so know that.
It's difficult because it's suppressing, so you're having to think the opposite of what you want. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Mhm. Yeah, I do understand that. Yeah, because you turn it on and it turns it off.
Yeah, yeah, on off, yeah.
And you turn it off to turn it on, you know, yeah, good. And that's the way most variables work. The other thing I'm seeing, just so you, and this was 134 for the most part, but folks, I just want to clarify this up. As your dimensions get smaller, I leave my text in here and I bring my arrows out. Okay? Now, I'm seeing, especially in the manual, I saw this a lot, where I'd see these little lines left in here. Okay, no, those aren't there. Okay, you pull the whole thing out. Remember, this is an 1/8 inch. We want an 1/8 inch at a minimum of this. Okay, CAD's going to do this for you automatically. Now, as it gets smaller yet, okay, another thing I've seen on a few drawings as we get smaller, I've seen this with 0.50. Now, this will never occur. Because keep in mind, you need an 1/8 and an 1/8, an 1/8 and an 1/8. Okay? So you need 1/2 inch here. Well, this is only 3 characters. That's only 3/8. If you got room to do this text should be in here and the arrows out. As they get smaller, the arrows should never be in here by themselves. Okay? It would be like that. Okay?
Does it matter which side you put the dimension on?
Depends on where you got room.
All right, that's not standard.
Yeah. Yes?
I'm going back to the zeros. If you have your precision set to 0, is it necessary to suppress?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just a rounding thing.
So it affects the round.
Okay, so